Let me start with the three-part apology for the lack of a November dump. Part number one, I had college and exams and stuff. I just joined college, so like first semester stuff, which were quite annoying. If any of you college people are watching, congratulations on getting through all of them relatively unscathed. Part number two, I seriously hurt my leg in around that time, so I wasn't able to like move around to record, and also I didn't have an editing computer because I was traveling at the same time. Although I did make A&E alongside it, that a lot of that footage had been made like a day or two before I got hurt. In fact, in the project you can also see my brace. The only thing I had any energy to do was A&E. And finally, part 3, I forgive you. Welcome to 2021's 20. You all know the drill by now. I talk about a lot of stuff in an extremely incoherent list. Check off reviewing different pieces of media that came out last year. My PP Brains random number generator is absolutely ready. This time around though, there's a slight format switch compared to last year's list video, which is 2020's 20. There I spoke about 5 movies, 5 games and 10 albums to create the 20, but this time I only actually played 2 games. No games this year. It's just 5 movies and 15 albums, because I heard a lot of shit this year. Before we actually start the 2 categories, I will give shoutouts to the 2 games that I did actually play, which were Metroid Dread and Swordsman VR. If you're familiar with my Twitter, you probably already know my thoughts about Swordsman VR because I posted a lot of sporadic clips of me beating the shit out of random people. Metroid Dread I got around the time I was traveling, so I didn't get to really talk about it to anyone at all. So yeah, both are very good games. If you want full-fledged reviews of either of them, I would be so down. I have so much shit to talk about all the time. I just like talking and ranting. Yeah, I highly recommend Swordsman to anyone who has a PSVR and Metroid Dread to anyone who has a Switch. So yeah, now we move on to the actual list. There's timestamps in the description so that you can skip ahead to the different categories and specific albums in case you want to be a little bitch. Let us begin. Guy is a movie that is good. That's about it. Okay, if you really insist on me giving this a fair review, it's a Ryan Reynolds. What do you expect other than Ryan Reynolds just being Deadpool but in different situations? Like, that's all he is in most movies. It's just him being his charismatic self in a funny movie. This time it's actually decently written and has a semi-unique premise of a PG-13 Deadpool being a NPC in a GTA clone. None of those words are in the Bible. That's about as descriptive as you can probably get with figures. It's just a fun, good time, as it always is with Ryan Reynolds. Pause. In the complete opposite tonal direction, we have Jai Bhim, a tragic and deeply affecting story about the disappearance of 3 people from a South Indian tribal community under police custody. It's a brutal, true story about the issues tribal people face in modern society, and it portrays it in a very gritty and real and visceral manner. It truly is one of the best dramas in Indian cinema in years. There is a reason why it has a 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which is insane. It was just that engaging. I was completely like gripped throughout. I didn't even look at anything else other than the screen the whole time. So yeah, please do give it a watch. Ideally watch it in Tamil with subs, but you know what, you can do whatever you want. Just the point is to just watch it. I think it was really good. I wouldn't say I'm a musical kind of a person. I myself am not really a fan of musicals. The only two musicals I actually liked were Sound of Music and La La Land. Okay, I'm probably starting to become one. But can you really blame me when musicals like Tick Tick Boom exist? Tick Tick Boom is about the life of Jonathan Larson, the creator of the legendary Broadway show Rent. This movie is actually based on a rock monologue that he made between Rent and the famous show that never really showed, Superbia. It's a very real and personal story about his whole life put in song, and I just feel like it's something that would resonate with a lot of us. Also, it's just so well put together, so well choreographed and acted. Everyone is at the top of their game. Lin-Manuel Miranda just possibly has made one of the best directorial debuts in a very long time, and Andrew Garfield is just amazing. Just take it in for a minute. You are amazing. You are amazing. Will you say? Mitchells versus the Machines. This is just an insane trip. If any of you have seen that one video of the Mitchells versus the Machines clips out of context, that's pretty much what the whole movie is. Even though it's wild and hilariously insane, it has a heart behind it. It feels like every facet of this movie was made with such care and fit together so beautifully. The direction, the animation style, voice actors, the writing, all of it just meshed together to create this extremely cohesive and beautiful movie. Like, it's really such an impressive feat. Speaking of animation, it does kind of feel like the Spider-Verse, and weirdly enough, it's actually directed or written by the people who made Spider-Verse, but it's way more vibrant and colorful than Spider-Verse was, and less comic-y. But yeah, it's a great, fun movie that I am sure everyone will get something out of. What do you think? What do you think? I literally quoted a line from it like 2 minutes ago. I'll give you some time. You can figure it out for yourself. Have you found it yet? It's pretty easy. I'm like an NPC waiting for you, the player, to do the right thing so that you can progress the story, move on to a cutscene or something. But you're not doing it for some reason because you're really shit at this game. Okay, fine, I'll tell you. No Way Home! My god! It screams so loud throughout the movie that I felt like I just went to a music festival or something. You know what? That actually summarizes it pretty well. It was a festival of everything Spider-Man for the last like 20 years. Celebration of Spider-Man's journey so far by making the greatest fan service movie ever. Fuck Endgame. Fuck Infinity War. Fuck Suryavanshi. No Way Home is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. In my life. In my life. In my life. Music. Yes, we like music. In fact, we like so much music that half the stuff from what we heard last year didn't even end up in the end of the year list. That doesn't mean those albums grew off me at all. It just means I found better stuff towards the latter half of this year. So, technically speaking, that mid-year video and this video right now are complementary. This one is not supposed to replace that video. Like the recommendations I gave there, the recommendations I gave here are very much valid recommendations. So yeah, give the albums in both videos a shot if my description of them suits your taste at all. Anyway, as per honorable mentions, Palais d'Argile by Chatterton, Fatigue by La Reine, The Turning Wheel by Spelling, Frailty by dltzk, Crawler by Idols, Volcanic Bird Volcanic Bird Enemy and The Voiced Concern by Lil Ugly Mane, Car by Car, Glow On by Turnstile, I Died For This by Grit, We're All Alone in This Together by Dave, Home Video by Lucy Dacus, Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast, Sling by Claro, Mood Valiant by Hiatus Coyote, Hanky by Richard Dawson and Circle, and Tiapify by Left at Lunch. Also, massive shoutouts to Pink Sifu with Gumbo, Underscores with Fishmonger, Magdalena Bay with Mercurial World, Sufjan Stevens and Angelo De Augustine with A Beginner's Mind, and Parker with Drive-By Lullabies. Good albums, in fact very good, but probably not better than Shut Up. Sometimes I Might Be Introvert by Lil Sim. I like Little Sims ever since I heard Grey Area when it came out in 2019. Her last album, I felt like she was set out to be a prominent name in conscious hip hop. And with this album, I'm so glad to be proven right. This album is a beautiful and authentic celebration of conscious hip hop. Sims being at her most introspective, lyrical and melodic, because this time her hooks and choruses are way catchier. She has harder hitting lines, way better delivery, and everything is on point for her message. I like the small, like movie-like interludes. It ties the whole album together in a very cohesive narrative without being overbearing. Another album I want to put on the same spot with Sometimes I Might Be Introvert is Montero by Lil Nas X, who I don't think needs much introduction. He is here solely because of how much I listened to him this year. As a project in its entirety, I don't think I would have put it that high at all. I don't appreciate it as much as other albums on here, but as individual songs, they are outstanding. Fully fleshed out and serve their purpose very well for the time it is on. I remember listening to the album the first time and I was just like, okay, the album as a whole isn't that impressive, but as I heard it more and more, I realized how much of the album turned up on my playlists. Lil Nas X is probably one of the best hit makers out right now, and after hearing this, I just like to see cohesive and grander project from him, because already I'm seeing that he knows how to make like a consistent narrative thread through his music videos, but I would like to see a more musical approach to a narrative and like a concept. Basically, everyone should just make concept albums. It's still a great album for what it is right now. And I'm glad Lil Nas X is getting the recognition for his work outside of Old Town Road, because for a long amount of time he was just known as that guy and that one extra song Panini. So it's nice to see that controversy sells. 97 Blossom by The Blossom, still in my rotation, still goes hard. emotionally and literally. Seriously, every time I hear it, it feels like I got gut punched in the throat. If you want to hear the full thoughts that I had on it, you can go back to the media video where I spoke about the EP, my experiences with it, and all that shit. There's a few in this list where I just skip over some stuff because I've already talked about them in the media list and I just don't have much to add. So if I do this, if I do this, I don't know which side will be, but if I do this, that means just go to that video instead so that I get more views on that one. To Hell With It by Pink Pantheress. I am so happy that someone spoke about the A-levels in a song. I am glad that there are people who hate the A-levels outside of the 30 people I went to school with. The only thing I really dislike about this album is the length. We all know this by now. It's a Pink Pantheress album. She's kind of quirky and she knows that her songs are short. She just likes to play with us. Nice to see that she's committed to the bit, I guess. Outside of that, it's a very, very solid effort. I like every song, almost every song here. I like the vaguely nostalgic 2000s vibes that permeate the album, but at the same time is like kind of backed with this horror, spooky sound backdrop. So it makes it sound sinister and futuristic and nostalgic at the same time. I don't know how she does it. In terms of tone, I wouldn't call it a pessimistic album because it sounds very sugary drum and bass and like cute bedroom pop, but yeah, it does feel like there are certain parts that are just like riddled with Gen Z angst and anxiety. So yeah, weirdly I relate to it, which I think is what it was going for. So fuck. Van Gogh's Left Ear by Z Loopers. I have no idea what the fuck this album is. It's a hip hop album, that much I know, but it sounds like absolutely nothing that hip hop is going for, but also everything that hip hop is going for at the same time. It's just absolutely wild. It feels like it was made by someone who was addicted to drugs, as you normally are, of course, the internet, as you normally are, of course, PS1 era video games, and Area 51 conspiracy theory videos. This sounds like some shit E.T. and Danny Brown would make together. They just looked at a list of trends in hip-hop that have been going around for like 10-15 years and decided, okay, let's just take all of this, okay, and do absolutely none of that. And that's the album. And it's fucking incredible. Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. This is probably the most relatable album out of everything in this list outside of the being rich and hot part. It came perfectly at a time when I was just moving out of school into college, which is like a whole new ball game, but I'm still like stuck in the same city because, you know, online classes, who doesn't love those?
At times like this, at times like these, during these difficult times, in these troubled times, challenging times, trying times.
So the feeling of like moving forward in life but not quite reaching there because of some stuff is frustrating, and I feel like Billie Eilish succeeds in replicating that emotion perfectly. It's a way more sophisticated and restrained effort from her. It's not like as unhinged and experimental as When We All Fall Asleep, but that's partially the point because that's where she's at right now. She doesn't want to go experiment, she just likes to stick with the low-key shit, which also fits with me right now. In conclusion, I am Billie Eilish. The Melodic Blue by Baby Keem. I have been dying to talk about Baby Keem since mid-2020, since I had my first few ideas for videos. I've been wanting to talk about Baby Keem forever, and finally I have an actual reason to. Let me start by saying this, okay? We're gonna go into a bit of a tangent here. You can skip forward if you like. I don't really care. Just watch it. I was gonna make a video about it later, but I don't really have too much stuff to talk about. So yeah, I'm just gonna put it in this segment here in this one album review length list thing. So tolerate me for a few more minutes. I get why people don't like Baby Keem. He cosplays a lot of artists who are big, like Carti, like Kanye, all of those good people. He's not like Kendrick. I get that. I know people wanted him to be like Kendrick because he's Kendrick's cousin, and also Kendrick is the reason why Baby Keem is in the industry in the first place. I know people are mad because he's collaborated with Kendrick so many times, and every single time Kendrick collaborates with him, people are more and more disappointed with him. I know a lot of people are mad about him. Let me get to my point. But what people fail to understand is that is his genius. The reason why Kendrick put him on was because, unlike a lot of the rappers that I have mentioned, Baby Keem has his own personality. Even though he sounds like a lot of existing artists right now, Baby Keem is the only one who can do Baby Keem, because Baby Keem is the only artist in the world who so early on in his career gets featured on a Kanye West song off of his most anticipated release to date, to say "Badada badada boom, I badada boom, I badada bing." He is just a fun and charismatic personality. He could make serious songs if he wants, but how many hip hop artists do you know who has their own personality, is funny, but doesn't border on being a meme rapper? The industry is oversaturated with people who want to make a serious message about a lot of things like society, relationships. Baby Keem is the only rapper who does not give a fuck. He fucks around a lot, but he is still taken seriously by the industry because of his unique personality that comes through when he's rapping. That's what the Melodic Blue is proof of. Number 9 is Donda. Here is the review for it that I did separately. And number 8 is Entertainment Death by Spirit of the Beehive, which I spoke about here in my mid-year list video. And I covered a lot of it already. And how I found the album and all of that. And yeah, my thoughts are still mostly the same. Just note that for all links, if you don't see it here pop up, it will 100% be in the description of the video. If you can go through that incoherent mess of a paragraph. Friends That Break Your Heart by James Blake. This is so very close to being my favorite James Blake project ever, and that is no small feat if you are familiar with that man's discography. Self-titled project, his debut, has this weird cult-like following around it. So you know how good this album is if these cultists come up to you and say, "Yep, this album was close to the self-titled, maybe even better." You know what's the best part about this whole thing? This album is James Blake at his least experimental. Even though he's taken more of a conventional R&B ambient pop approach like he did on Assume Form, his last album, it feels more genuine because he remains a star of his show, which I can't say for Assume Form. It feels like this time around he's more focused on making lyrics that hit than just production. Most of the times it's, I wouldn't say bare bones, but it's definitely more minimal. But that's the point. It's done on purpose to make his emotionlessness more apparent through his lyrics, which in itself tells us how he's feeling, which is miserable. Without getting very, very pretentious, as if I wasn't already, I can conclude by saying it's a solid sad boy album. If you're feeling mostly miserable, Don't even go near this album because it'll just make it worse. LP by JPEG Mafia is the culmination of everything that made him great in the first place and where he hones in on all of it. His rapping is better, his lyrics are better, his production is not only just better but also more appealing to the mainstream. As Peggy has mentioned time and time again in interviews, the intent of this album is to bridge the gap between experimental and mainstream, and I think he did a pretty good job in that regard. I do respect it as an effort more than I do EP2, which was trying to do the same thing but more in an R&B pop sort of way. I'm glad this one is more focused on hip hop. Even though I do actually like Peggy singing, I'm glad this one was more focused on hip hop because his rapping is way better than his singing. But unlike EP2 and EP1 for that matter, this album feels more focused and concentrated with some of his best shit to date, which, coming from me, a known superfan, means a lot. Not the online version though, that's on Spotify and stuff. That album is essentially the same, but it's far less coherent as a project compared to the offline version that you get on YouTube and Bandcamp. So if you like hip hop and can appreciate a left field approach to the genre, this is a very good place to start. And now that we are on the subject of albums to start with, I did want to make a video as like an introduction to experimental hip hop. If you guys are interested in that, what do they usually say at this part? Do all the things to show that you are interested. Because weirdly enough, I listen to a lot of experimental hip hop stuff, so I could potentially guide people into the genre. So yeah, this is a good place to start. Don't look at the online version. It's literally just there just for you to download and save the songs into your playlist, just to show that I listened to the album. Look at me. The real shit is the offline album. As my grandma used to say, the wanted to live fancy, the better work bitch. Not sure what that has to do with anything. Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler the Creator. We all know how this one went down. I have talked about it incessantly. Old video. One thing I do have to say that I feel like was important that I left a little ambiguous in the previous video is that after listening to it way more times and letting it sit with me, I can see it's never going to be as important a record as Igor to me, which is not a bad thing. I love this album. I think it is incredible. Compared to a lot of other things that a lot of other artists have done, Call Me If You Get Lost is better than most of them, probably. But Igor has a very special place in my heart, which I don't think will be filled by another Tyler the Creator project for another few years. Igor was kind of tied to a very important event in my life. So yeah, Call Me If You Get Lost is probably not going to be there anytime soon. It's still incredible. Again, don't get me wrong, it's still one of the best albums of the year. Yeah, it still doesn't hold as much of a place in my heart as Igor. Still listen to it. It's still great. Watch my friend's video about it. Asymptotical World EP by Yves Tumor. Yves Tumor is one of my favorite non-hip-hop musical acts in modern times because of how well they blend elements of shoegaze, dream pop, art rock, goth aesthetics into their shit. I loved the last album, Heaven to a Tortured Mind, but I always felt that it was slightly lacking and it felt somewhat restrained with the sound that Yves Tumor was trying to make for themselves. But with this one, they just let it all loose. Vocally, instrumentally, it's leaps and bounds better than Heaven to a Tortured Mind. I've never heard them sing like this with this much intensity. It feels way more profound and on point. How distorted and grand the production sounds this time. It's so insane to me that this one EP can pack so much of a punch in such a short amount of time. I love every minute of it, and I just cannot wait for more music from them. Please do give it a shot if you like 90s shoegaze vibes or just art pop in general. You're gonna absolutely love it and become a super fan, or you're gonna hate it and just move on. Just fine. Might be for everyone, but God, I wish more people talked about it. Spread the good word of Eve Tumor. Evening with Silk Sonic by Silk Sonic, the newly formed duo Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. I don't think at this point I need to explain this position to any of you. Leave the door open and smoking out the window and everyone in a chokehold for a solid night. Leave the door open for half a year. Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak is a match made in R&B, soul, funk heaven. It's beautiful, it's fantastic, it's mesmerizing, it's a perfect piece of everything the 80s had to offer outside of rock and conventional white person pop. Encapsulated in a short and sweet 30-ish minutes package that is so easily consumable. If you listen through the whole thing, this is where I get really threatening. If you listen to this whole thing and don't even like one song, you are bad vibes. That's it. Smiling with No Teeth by Genesis Owusu. Again, not much to say this time that I haven't said. Best debut ever, best album of the year. If the album after this didn't exist, which is why it's second in the list.
So I don't know why I just said that. It kind of just makes it redundant. So yeah, it's if the album that's in first place didn't exist, this would be in first place.
Let's just move on. Before my number one pick that you have waited about half an hour for, if my calculations are correct, here is a word from our sponsors.
Raid Shadow.
No, there's no sponsor. I have like 100 something subscribers.
Thank you for 100 something subscribers.
Who am I going to market to? Think, viewer, think. Anyway, my album of the year is By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Injury Reserve. This album hurted. I have been a fan of Injury Reserve since I heard Oh Shit many years after its release in like 2017 or 18. I was completely enthralled with how creative and insanely energetic experimental hip-hop could be. In fact, it was my introduction to the genre as a whole. So technically speaking, some of my favorite artists wouldn't even be my favorite artists had I not heard Injury Reserve. I'm always excited for stuff from them every single time they announce. And every single time they announce something, I am always blown away and surprised. This time was very, very different. It barely sounds like the same group anymore. It's so different from whatever I could have possibly expected. And you know what? It isn't the same group anymore. Not only have they evolved, but they're always constantly trying to create something wildly out of their comfort zones. The mission statement when creating this album for the group, and especially for the late member Groggs, was let's just go into the studio and make some weird shit. And by the time they finished, it wasn't just a weird, dark hip-hop album, but it had turned into this beautiful ode and eulogy to Groggs, presented through a new genre of hip-hop that they had created for themselves. To put a label on what they have made here would be a great disservice to what they were trying to go for, but for the sake of people who haven't heard the album, and since I'm a reviewer trying to make other people listen to it, I will probably have to give it one. So yeah, among the discourse for this album, the main term that has popped up is post-rap, which is kind of fitting, but at the same time, it's so much more. It is so far left field from hip-hop, but it still retains a lot of the spirit of Injury Reserve that we had known for so long. This is obviously their best album, if you couldn't tell from the way I'm fanboying, but I'd also like to say it is probably pretty high up in my favorites of all time. But for you, right now, it is just my album of the year. Rest in peace, Crocs. Alongside this album, I would also like to mention the Power EP, of course, because that is a project that I felt directly attached to. Like last year with Summer Grace by Vanilla Coke, this project was directly linked to my life in high school because I went to high school with the person who made this, of course. I don't want to talk too much specifically about the songs in particular because I did already talk a lot about it in the mid-year review, so you can probably check it out again. But I just wanted to say that even now it holds a very special place in my heart. Arjeshh is a very important driving force in my own creativity. Had he not been so risk-taking and so forward with his sound, I would not have even thought to put out Alarums and Excursions either. I witnessed them go through the whole process of, are they gonna like it? Is it too different from stuff I've made before? To, fuck it, let's just release it. It's me, and I think that's good enough. That mentality was so inspiring to me, and I don't think I will ever forget that whole experience in my life. So yeah, this EP is very special to me. I am so glad to be part of his process, and yeah, I don't think there will be a time where I don't look back at this project fondly. So finally, that was my list. It took me like days at a stretch just to get the script done. God knows what editing is going to be like. I hope you do well editing me mentally, because we both know this is not gonna end well, because I'm recording on the 14th right now, and as of right now my intention is to upload on the 15th. If we didn't make the 15th, just know I have probably spent all night like editing the shit out of this. But regardless, I hope you liked the video. This one obviously was a little less jokey like the last mid-year video, because I just really wanted to make something for the end of the year, because this year has been wild. But yeah, this year I feel like this channel has been a personal win for me, outside of the fact I uploaded like 10 videos in the entire year. But I'm quite happy with how they turned out, as a lot of you do seem to think also. Another personal victory, Alarums and Excursions, my first album, which I am so incredibly proud of. I worked on it for a long time, at least music wise. The music video I had like changed up a lot from my initial ideas and stuff. But yeah, that was a great fun time, great couple of days recording and editing and moving around with the broken leg, as I mentioned. And yeah, that was just a great personal victory, and I really appreciate a lot of you actually theorizing about what it means and stuff like that. And you know, it's nice to know that someone gives a shit about your art, so thank you. Anyway, that's me, that's my year. Thank you for watching. Do check out the albums. Let me know what you thought about them in the comments, or like whatever you want to, because I love talking about albums and music. And I always have time to talk about shit that's not useful. So my DMs are open. You may slide. Also, check out Arjeshh and Hoax, my good friends. You already heard about Arjeshh, but he also makes very good videos about like music and pop culture in general. One cool video that I think you should check out is this essay video that he wrote about Call Me If You Get Lost, and its similarities thematically to The Great Gatsby, because he's a nerd like that. And Hoax, my good friend David, who had a very big rebrand, and judging by the reintroduction video itself, I'm sure that the rest of the videos are gonna be straight bangers. So yeah, please do subscribe to both of them. Also do check out Alarums and Excursions. I'm working on a new album already right now. No date or anything. I still haven't even started making the fucking music outside of like half a track. Working on new content, more music videos, maybe a collab. Who knows? You didn't hear from me. Anyway, thank you. Love you. सतर्क रहें, सुरक्षित रहें. जय हिंद.